Hello and welcome to today's episode of From Grief to Gratitude. So excited to be with you again today. I'm Debbie Fabre. This is my very special friend and guest, Rebecca Halford. Right?
Yes, yep.
I always screw up on names. But anyway, this is Rebecca, and she's just an amazing person, and I'm so excited to uh, present her to you today and let her just tell you a little bit about her story and what God has done in her life. And just once you get to know her, you're going to wish she was your friend too. So, Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And as she said, my name is Rebecca Halford. My husband passed away in 2014. His name was Stephen. I don't even really know how to start this. Yeah.
Well, let's start with your life. Just basically, you told me just a while ago you'd been married before
Yes.
and divorced.
Yeah. Yes,
Tell
I
me.
was married for 14 years and divorced, and that was horrendous. That was, I thought, the love of my life, and I didn't know how I was going to get through it. But fortunately, I had children, so you gotta go on when you have children. So I managed to struggle through that, and I thought it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me in the world. And then I met my second husband, and he was the most incredible human being ever. And that's not me remembering him well because he's gone.
All right.
He was just absolutely sainted, and I don't like to tell that a lot because normally the really great people are married to. So I tell my sister regularly, reckon what that made me. But he was just beyond precious, and he passed away very early, 51 years old. We didn't know that he had any heart issues at all, and he had what they call a widowmaker. So he had a massive heart attack and passed away. We were at home, and I got to be with him, so that was wonderful. It happened very fast, so later on, after I got over the shock of it, I was very grateful, that he was just here, and then he was home,
He just went
Yeah.
to sleep on earth and woke
Yeah.
up in heaven.
Yeah.
Which was
Yeah,
great.
he said his last words were, "I'm going to wait on." I was calling the ambulance, and he's like, "I'm going to wait on the couch," and he was gone. So I am grateful that I got to be with him for that, and I know
Yeah.
what it was like.
Yeah. You know that he didn't suffer.
Right.
And you know that he just, that is, I know my husband was in the hospital for a couple of weeks before he passed away, but it was still completely unexpected.
Right.
And they told us he was going home, and they didn't know he was going home.
Right. Right. Yeah. They didn't clarify.
They were kind of right that he was going home, but not
Just didn't
home
clarify
with
which
me,
home. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And but then just suddenly the same thing,
Right.
and he just was there and he wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
And and so I had that comfort too, to know that
Yeah.
he didn't suffer, and that's comforting.
Mm-hmm.
Still doesn't make the loss any less
Right.
serious.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I was probably the most spoiled human being you've ever met.
I was pretty spoiled. You
Yeah.
have to go
Yeah.
a little to be more spoiled.
Okay. After my husband passed away, I went out to dinner with my sister and my brother-in-law, and we went to a steakhouse. And I started crying when they brought my food. And my sister said, "You can do this," because he always cut my he always cut my steak. for me.
Okay, you were
Okay,
more spoiled than
yeah.
me.
I started crying. I was like, I don't want to do this. She said, "You can do." I said, "I know I can. I don't want to."
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's sad but sweet.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't cut all my meat, but he always cut my steak. So it was traumatic for me to be out to dinner and stand in the restaurant crying because I didn't want to have to cut it. I knew I could. I was perfectly capable. I just didn't want to have to.
You win.
Yeah.
Like you were more spoiled than me. Although I was pretty spoiled,
Yeah.
and that's not taking anything away from
Right.
either one. But
Right. Yes. Yeah. He was
that's
just.
so sweet.
Yeah.
Well, how did you meet him? Tell me about that.
I don't know. I don't know. This is the place to tell about that. I met him in a nightclub.
I think that.
Yeah, we some friends of mine and I used to go dancing, and I had been through, like I say, a really bad divorce. Well, I waited for over a year before I ever got out of around people, because I knew I was very wounded, and anybody who was nice to me was going to be the man. You know,
Yeah.
it was all it was going to take was you're pretty, and I was going to be like head over heels. So I stayed to myself for about a year or so after the divorce to try to figure out who I was and what I wanted, and what life was all about as
Yeah.
a single person. And then I started going out with some girlfriends, and we'd go dancing on Friday nights, and so we went to a club, and there was a guy sitting up by the bar and right near the restroom. So I went to the restroom and brushed my hair and went back, and he didn't say anything. And I went to the restroom and threw some lipstick, and I went back, and he didn't say anything. And after about the fourth trip to the restroom, I came out and I said, "Well, are you going to ask me to dance or what?" I mean, I'm just saying.
How much more obvious can I be?
Yeah. I cannot make any more trips to the restroom and even look somewhat legit. So he did.
You already didn't look legit after the third one, especially.
Yeah.
What was he thinking of?
Yeah.
Did he ever say?
Well,
what
he
was
said
thinking?
he didn't like blondes.
Oh.
He said I never noticed you because I'm not a fan of blondes. So yeah.
Wow.
So I said, oh, because of course, a few weeks later I asked.
Yeah.
Were you just completely not interested?
Yeah.
He said, I never even noticed you because I kind of teamed you out, I guess, because you were blonde. So.
Well, and my husband said he always preferred brunettes until he met me.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
And the last person I dated happened to say that.
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
That's weird because I never heard that. And for you to tell me that, I'm like,
yeah.
So
we
he said yes that he would dance.
Oh yes, and we immediately became a couple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a week later we were pretty much inseparable.
Yeah, that's sweet.
And for the first year, none of his friends even knew my name. They thought my name was Baby.
I thought, why?
Yeah, because all he called me was Baby. He called me Baby or Baby Doll. And so, all of his friends were like, after they realized we were going to be together for a while, started having to say, "What's your name?" We don't even know your name.
Wouldn't have liked them calling you Baby.
Right. Oh, they all did.
Oh, did they?
Everybody did. Everybody, because that's all he called me. So they didn't know my name. So that's what they called me was Baby.
Well, let me tell you, I have seen his picture. He was gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've always been tall and a bigger girl. So I always kind of slumped down and stayed barefooted. And he was 6'3", so it was wonderful to have somebody that I could look
gorgeous
up to.
And tall.
Yeah. Tall, dark, and handsome.
Oh, yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just.
That's
He was absolutely priceless, and my whole world was just. I was months just going through the motions.
So when he passed, it was just.
Yeah, I was just. I mean, honestly, for the first month, people fed me. They set food in front of me, and I ate it. They walked me into the bathroom, and I stood in the shower. I'm not real sure if I bathed or washed my hair.
So
but
you at least had people in your life. Was it friends?
Yes. No,
family?
it was my son and daughter-in-law. I went to stay with them for a little bit because they were, I was so taken care of that they were really concerned, about if I could even take care of myself anymore.
This so cracks me up. And I know this is not about me today, but when you're telling me this, I'm laughing because my family thought, what is she going to do?
Yes.
Because we don't know that she can function on her own. I had never lived alone.
Yeah. Well, see, I had. Now, prior to that, I had been very independent. My first husband had worked away from home. He was gone 3 weeks out of the month.
But once you're spoiled that bad, and baby like that, and it's not that you can't do it.
Right, and just like the state thing, it's not that I couldn't do it. I didn't want to have to. I mean, and that's what everybody kept. You're stronger than you realize, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to be strong. I don't doubt I can. I don't want to.
And here's where this came in that I heard someone say today: when you become a widow, you reach down and find a inner strength that you never knew you had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really your story in that case. And mine, not to the same degree.
Right. And see, we were both Christian people. We both knew that God existed, that He was very real, He was a part of our life. And I thought that I was a pretty good Christian. But after my husband passed, I realized it was Stephen and then God.
Yeah. We do that. Sometimes we don't realize we make idols out of not just things, but people.
Right.
And
I had him. So
Yeah.
then, you know, God being God, didn't hold that against me, and he just moved into the number one spot. And just, I don't, it's going to take me a minute to talk about it because the things that he did for me are just so unbelievable. I mean, literally, money would come in the mail. You know, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I would get a check in the mail. And I'm like, this is not real. This is not real life. This doesn't happen to people. You know, I mean, just so many things. The people that he put in my life, you know. Highlands came to my home. The reason I go to the church of Highlands, and the reason I go there now is because a woman had said to me, you know, you need some help. You're just overwhelmed. Can I call some people who might help you? And I said, that would be wonderful. Oh, I appreciate it so much. So I got a phone call from a guy who says, hi, you know, I'm from Church of the Highlands, and I'd like to come out and evaluate, you know, so maybe we can come do some projects around your house. We had a very old home. We had a home that was built in 1910, and we had about 2 acres of land and a swimming pool, and there was just a lot. And
Yeah, I can't
could
imagine
not-
trying to
I
take
could
care
not
of that.
take care of it. And when my husband passed, the day that he passed, I have COPD. The day he passed, I got put in the hospital because my COPD was so bad, and I had to stay in the hospital for several days, and they weren't really wanting to let me out, but I was going to the funeral, so I got out.
How were you able to plan that?
I
funeral?
didn't plan it. My son and
Somebody
daughter-in-law,
did it.
my son and daughter-in-law took care of everything. Yeah,
So
they
then
took care of
that's
all
to
that.
say it's okay
Right.
if
right.
you can't do
Yeah.
it for
Yes.
whatever reason,
Right. Yeah.
physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
know that it's okay to have help.
Yes. Yeah. And that was not something I was used to.
Mm.
I was the one who did everything for everybody. I was the one who took care of stuff. I was the one who, you know, handled everything. You know, but in the moment, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know they were doing it.
How
I didn't
many
even know it
years?
needed to be done, you know.
How many years were you married?
18.
18.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
even though you're the one who did things for your family,
Right.
he did for you.
Oh,
and
yes.
I'm
He
sure
gave me the energy to do
Yeah.
for everybody else because he took such great care of me.
that's what
So,
I
and
started to
that's-
say.
yeah.
Probably, I mean, that was just who he was. But also seeing what you gave out, he wanted to give that back to you. And
Yeah.
that's so sweet.
Yeah. At one point, when our children were younger, we had, you know, they had gotten in a little selfish phase, and we had a sit down with them, you know, where we took the Solo cups and did the whole thing. You know, we had water in 2 Solo cups, you know, and this is the mom and the dad, and we were pouring it out into the kids, you know. And after a little while, if the kids don't pour back, guess what? There's nothing left, you know.
Wow.
So we were both very aware of, you know, and he had been in a not so great first marriage. So I think that gave both of us an understanding of how important it was.
Yeah.
I mean, we were constantly holding hands. We would annoy people, you know. And we've been together 10, 12, 15 years, and people are like, how long have y'all been married? You know?
Like you were
Yeah,
newlyweds.
because he's opening the car door for me. We're holding hands. We're sitting beside each other. You know, we're snuggling, and, you know,
I wish I
they're like,
had
oh,
known.
newlyweds. And we're like, yeah, we only been married for 7 years. We really are, you know.
That's how my parents were.
Yeah.
Married 71 years, and people said they were the oldest teenagers they ever knew.
Yeah. One of our Sunday school classes, they were like, y'all need to sit apart from each other. You don't need to sit and hold hands in Sunday school. And I'm like, why not? You know, we're not distracting anybody. We're not being disruptive. We're just sitting here holding each other's hand. But,
So sweet.
yeah. But so it was, you know, it was very overwhelming for me. You know, and like I say, for a while, for several months, I didn't do anything other than get up, eat if somebody put food in front of me, bathe if somebody walked me into the bathroom and said, you know, here's clothes to put on when you come out. You know, but, you know, then I started to get some sense about it, you know, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to be okay. He spent every day of his life making sure I was okay. It would be so disrespectful to him for me not to be okay now. You know, and I can't disrespect him that way. I got to be all right. Because that was his
That's
big
what
thing.
he would have wanted.
Right. He spent his time making sure I was okay.
Mhm.
You know, and now I can't disregard that and just go, sorry. You know,
You
now I'm
can't
gonna
check
fall apart.
out.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
we do check out a little bit.
Yes, I checked
We
out for a while.
temporarily
Yes, for a
check
little
out,
while.
but at some point,
Yeah.
You
Once
have
I
to
started
find
getting-
that inner
Yeah.
strength
Yeah, and I
that
think
God gives
we've all
you.
talked about the widow fog, and I think once I started coming out of that, I realized I've got to, I got to be okay. Because he just, he loved me, and he spent so much time making sure I was okay. I've got, I got to find a way to be okay now with him gone,
I love that. So you basically pulled yourself up by the bootstraps. And I never knew what that meant until I got this pair of boots with straps on them. And I was putting it on one day and I thought, that's what it means. It's just digging in and getting it done.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with that to a degree, but what I did was I surrendered to God. Rather than picking myself up, I just laid down and said, okay, I got to get through this. I got to be okay. What now? How do I do that?
Well, and that is, though,
Yeah.
because you become submissive to
Right.
the will of God.
Yes. And that's when I started to realize that I had, God had been second in my life and Stephen had been first, and I was like, oh, and I've been in church my life, in and out of church all of my life. I've always known, but like I said, I'm bad about rabbit trails, sorry guys. But they came, Church of the House came.
Oh, that's right. We
I
did
digress.
stray.
But
Might
they
have been my
came
fault.
and started doing, and like 20 people showed up. Charles Kelly was leading it. He's now the pastor at Sylacauga.
Okay.
And he was in Church of the Highlands at the time. And it was all kinds of children out there weeding and, and cleaning up and, and doing, and nobody was whining. Nobody was talking about being hot. Nobody's complaining about being bored.
Yeah.
Just this massive red shirts out in my yard, and they were on my roof. I had tin roof, there was a couple places that were loose. They were up there on the tin roof fixing stuff, and there was a lot to be done. So they came back the next month. And when they did, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know what was going on. So I had a little, wrote my little check and I carried it outside, folded it in half. And I told Charles Kelly, I said, here, I want to give you something for all y'all are doing because you're buying materials and stuff. He goes, oh, you ain't taking my blessing away. And I was like, oh, stop. First of all, they will not allow me to, even make a donation. And then there's these kids who are here. I was like, I got to go check this place out.
Like children or teenagers or both?
Like both. Like 8 and 10-year-olds and some teenagers, Yeah. People were just bringing their children with them, and the children were out there working. And I had a swimming pool in my backyard, and no kids were going, but I want to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh my word, this is unheard of.
It is unheard of and unusual. And,
Yes. Yeah.
So many times larger churches get bad press or, somebody tries to come against them and say, well, we did all this work. And that's not how it is
Right.
where we are.
Right.
I as well have had a lot of people coming, the serve team they call them, and then included children. And this last time they came, there were 4 kids running through, but not that they were. I okayed this, all right, so it wasn't a bad thing. But it made me so happy because they were kind of running around in a circle and they were playing and they were little ones and they were happy and it brought life to my house. It brought that laughter and that joy.
Yep.
And so it is. Train them when they're young in the way they should go.
And they will not depart when they're old.
That's right. The word says that, and so I love that. Even children, and like you said, attitudes.
Yes.
Well, no bad attitudes.
They came 3 months in a row and got it back in order. And so I went to Church of the Highlands because I had to find out what it was about. I didn't know a soul. I walked in, I sat by myself, and pretty much was a bobblehead. Everything Pastor Chris said, I was like, okay. So, like the second week I was there, he's like, small groups are starting, and everybody needs to be in a small group. And if you don't know what group to join Freedom. I was like, okay. Okay. So the very first thing I did.
Hard.
Yeah. Just, 3 weeks in, I, did Growth Track. And I joined a small group, and it was a Freedom group, and oh my word. That was in 2015, and I'm still in contact. Last semester, I co-led a Freedom group with one of the ladies who co-led my very first Freedom group. We're still bonded and still see each other and communicate, and it's just, that was the beginning of my transformation. And I say that, Charles Kelly brought me to Highlands, and Lisa Gowans and Michelle Smith gave me family at Highlands.
Then so important at any time in your life, but as a widow, I think it is so important to have that group of people who, number one, love you, and they do help take care of you and do things, but that's not your motivation for wanting to be.
Right.
But then to get
And in
a
that community,
small
you're
group,
able to give back to them too.
you are,
Which you haven't been because you've just been receiving.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true.
you're in that situation. You're able to start giving back to, and that makes you feel good because you're not only receiving what you need, you feel like you're starting to contribute again, and you're starting to breathe, and you're starting to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
You're not just something that needs to be taken care of.
Exactly.
And that's what it was for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know we talk about this on this podcast a lot, but a widow small group, there just aren't enough of those.
Absolutely.
And I heard someone, I was listening to a lot of different things this morning, and she was saying, she also spoke about small group and how when you get with other widows, it's like you can't say anything wrong,
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to share your heart, and it's okay to just let it all out. Not, it's just different.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the case for so many people, I mean, so many situations where you meet, people who walk that mile.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a totally different understanding. I can be very sympathetic for something you're going through. But when I've walked that mile, I can be very empathetic for what you're going through, and it has a whole different level for me, and a different level of understanding and living, and a different feeling for me. Yeah.
And don't you think, and like what you said a while ago, you're also adding to the group,
Right.
that you're helping people who are maybe not as far along as you are, or who haven't been able to get over a certain thing that happened, or
Yes.
or just who have felt like they were the only ones in the world who've gone through that.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
to hear a similar story, it's like when we're just talking, it's like, oh yeah, me too. I want to start saying, me too.
Yeah.
But that's just,
it's just so incredible.
there's a kinship, right?
Oh, absolutely. And like you had alluded to earlier, I've never felt so comforted. I mean, I don't have any concern that I could call anybody at 2:00 in the morning and say, I'm just losing it. I'm just, I'm falling apart. And it wouldn't be, call me back at 8.
No, it wouldn't
It'd
be.
be, go ahead, what you got,
Or do you want me to come over?
Yeah, do you need me? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And if you can't answer, then they just show up.
Yeah, that's right. So when my niece told this in the podcast she was in, but her best friend said, whenever you need, when her mother was passing, whenever you need me, just say the word. And Kim texted back word. That's all she had to say. She just said word.
Yes.
And her friend was there in just a few minutes, barefoot. Nonetheless.
Yeah.
She didn't get time to put her shoes on.
Yep.
So that makes a big difference.
And so, to now have that relationship, with the Lord, and with these women that I have gotten so bonded to, is just, it's beyond.
Yeah.
I mean, when he passed, I would have told you there's no good can ever come out of this.
Oh yeah.
But there he is. There really is. And it just takes surrender. It just takes giving it to God and going, okay, what do you want to do with it? I got a big old lump of clay here and it ain't very pretty. It's a bit messy. And allowing him to do, put the people in your life and, put the situations in your life and, and taking the time to be quiet and hear that sometimes because we like to be really busy.
Oh yeah. Well, when we're busy, we don't have to think about the pain or
or what it could have been like or what today was or
Yeah. If you could think of one thing, I know this might throw you off here, but one of the most significant things that has happened to you since your husband passed away? Would it be that what you're saying, that the church had reached out to you, or?
Yeah, I think the most significant thing is my surrender.
Mhm.
Because I've always been in charge. I've always taken care of things. I've always handled things. I've always fixed things. I've always, I'm the one that's always, in the background, making sure, the napkins are filled, and there's forks and there's plates, I
do
always
know.
wanted to be, back there making sure everything was taken care of. And so surrender was, I was at the bottom, so there was no choice. But I was laying down. I might as well give up, I might as well surrender. Thank you, God, that I was laying there, with nothing left to do but surrender. Because I couldn't fix it. I couldn't make it better. I couldn't work myself out of it. I couldn't stay so busy that it didn't catch up to me.
Yeah, it does.
And it's just, so for me, it was the surrender. It's okay. You don't know what tomorrow looks like. You don't know, what's in store for you. You don't get to have the plans laid and made. Because I had the plans laid and made.
Oh,
Me and him were passing away in our 80s in bed together. We were laying there holding hands. We were notebook out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know.
I knew the plans. I had them.
Yeah.
He was going to retire. We were going to travel.
Grow old together.
Yes, we had it.
Have
we had it figured out.
grandchildren,
Yes.
and,
Yes. All the rest of our grandchildren were going to come along, and we were just going. We had one granddaughter at the time. Yeah, my two grandsons were born. One of them was born a year after. One was born 6 weeks before he passed away, so he did get to see him.
Aww.
Yeah, he got to see him. But the other one was born. He passed away in February, and he was born that December. Yeah, and then my little daughter-in-law, she said, "I'm Big Mama, and he was Big Daddy." She said, "Big Daddy had to go to heaven to send him, to send him down here." So
That's so sweet.
yeah,
Well, I do, I think about that a lot of times when you have a death. Many, many times there's a new life brought in. And I think about that a lot. That gives some comfort and
Right.
some peace
Right.
to know that life goes on, and that, and like you said, if we'll just surrender and not
is
fight it.
hard for
because,
Southern women to do. It may be hard for all women. I don't know all women, but I know Southern women, and it's hard for us to give it up.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to go, "You got this," and sit back.
It's different, and as I talked about last week, I had suffered a lot of different losses, but there's just something about losing that spouse, because the word says when you're married, the two become one, right?
And that's your day in, day out.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother's somebody you call. Your sister is somebody you see.
Yeah.
Your spouse is, every time you walk in the door, every time you walk in your bedroom, every time you get in your car to go somewhere, that's hitting you in the face.
Oh yeah. Yeah, driving by someplace that you went together, or a song come on the radio.
Yeah, you think I'm flooding today? Oh yeah, let some songs come on. Yeah, yeah. This ain't good, but this is my pretty cry.
Ironically, and I have not, I have kind of stepped into the dating world a little bit, and I know Rebecca has too, but on my very first date, I was meeting someone, and driving to meet him, on the way in the car, mine and Craig's song came on. And I'm like, I'm thinking, I didn't want to cry my makeup off, but I'm thinking, I'm like, Craig, are you trying to tell me something, that it's okay or that it's not okay?
What is it you're telling me?
But yeah, it's true, and there are triggers. So I want to kind of address that with you, because not a lot of the dating part,
right?
Because not a lot of the women in our group have kind of stuck their toe in there,
right? Yeah.
And so, what's that like?
Well, I'm not a good one to speak on that, because it didn't last very long. I was looking for somebody to go to dinner with, looking for somebody to go to the movies with, looking for somebody just to spend time with, to talk to and to spend time with. And so I did get on a couple of dating apps, and everybody that I thought I'd talk to was in Tennessee or Florida or Georgia, you know. And I'm like, that's looking for a relationship. You
Yeah.
know, if I'm going to go that far. And I wouldn't, I'm not saying I'm against a relationship. I'm just not setting out to establish a relationship,
Right.
And so, I talked to a couple people here, locally, and I was like, ooh, maybe I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
It was just,
Did your family know?
No, not until after I got off the dating
Yeah.
sites.
So
Yeah.
how did they feel about that, one way or the other?
They were fine either way.
Whatever makes
Yeah,
you happy.
yes, yeah. They're very supportive of me, and I'm ever so grateful. I'm just beyond grateful because, it's just, there's not a lot of you need to or you shoulds,
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I didn't raise my children with a lot of you need to or you shoulds. I raised my children with a bunch of, do you really feel like that's a good choice? What do you feel like the consequences of that are going to be? So they're kind of that way with me now. What do you,
Yeah.
you think that's a good choice?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it's a hard thing as a widow to.
Yes.
And I've
Yes.
heard it said that a widower would be better to. I mean, because they understood more what you're going through, or so I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
haven't had.
Yeah, I haven't had that luxury yet.
Yeah.
I'll call it a luxury.
But I do think that the companionship thing and the friendship thing, and I think it's okay. I know one of the ladies I'm going to have come speak to you, she has had 2 husbands pass away. But she's in a very happy relationship right now. Or marriage. She married again.
Yeah.
That was brave.
Yes, yeah.
But, but he was a widower. And so they have that in common. And both of them are free to talk about the past relationship.
Yes.
And not be punished for that.
Right,
you know.
right. No misunderstanding about what that means.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I know some people say, well, I can never measure up to what he was or what,
Yeah.
But I think when you're with a widower, that he understands more.
Right,
I mean,
right. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, your heart only grows with love. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I've never taken somebody out to put somebody new in.
no,
I mean,
no.
so, I don't,
It doesn't mean you're replacing them, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Just the more people I love, the bigger my heart gets. It's not a matter of, oh, well, I need to take you out now because you hadn't been here for a minute and put somebody new in.
Right.
No, I get to love all of them. I mean, it's amazing. That's the most godlike I feel. Is that this heart just inside this human body can be that huge. And if I meet 50 more people or 500 more people or 5,000 more people that I connect with,
You've got room.
I've got room.
Yeah.
I've got room.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Well, I certainly know you've let me into your heart, and I'm glad about that because we've got some crafting to do.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
And Rebecca's an organizer, and I think in my younger days I was better at that than I am now because I don't know. It's probably the widow thing. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. Because that's when I got mine. So
Oh,
yeah. So
there you go. But I love that you're not trying to replace somebody, and I think no matter what happens from here on out, there'll never be anybody who will know me for as many years. I was married for 37 years.
Right.
And so we didn't grow up together as children, but we matured together.
Yes.
And we grew up into adults together.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think, well, nobody will ever know my parents because they're gone.
Right.
Nobody else would ever do. But like you said, it's not a comparison.
Right.
It's a whole
Right.
new.
Yes. It's an entirely different chapter.
Yeah, a whole new chapter.
Entirely different chapter.
Which some people write and some don't.
Right.
And that's okay
Yes.
either way.
Yes.
It just depends on. I've got a sister who is a widow, and she doesn't have any interest in marrying again.
Right.
I'm
Right.
sure if the Lord sent the right person, that she would be
right. She'd be
receive
open to
that.
But yeah.
she's
she's fine.
very
She's
happy.
Yeah.
And she did go on one date, and she ate like 2 bites of her lunch. She just couldn't eat. And she said she talked the whole time and couldn't stop talking because she was so nervous. And she said that it was hideous, but because of her
Right.
being
Because
so
her-
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she didn't go out again. That was the end of that.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I love about is our camaraderie with all the widows in our group is that you don't have to be the same. You don't have to like
No.
what I like. You don't have to do what I do. You don't have to handle it the way I handle it.
And there's
You
no
know,
judgment.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That you don't have to handle it the way I handle it, and I'm good with that.
True.
What do you need? What do you need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
Not what I would
that's-
do in that situation. What do you need?
What do you need?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's I think that's something that widows absolutely need is, they don't need advice. They don't need you telling them, oh, get all this stuff out of the house because it just makes you sad, or leave all this stuff in there because you don't want to be thrown in. You want to remember him. You want to honor him. None of those things matter.
Or just like I know the other day when I was with some widows, one widow was saying she never wanted to spread her husband's ashes,
Right.
and then another one said she had just done that,
Right.
and
yes.
that was okay
right.
either way.
Yeah. And one wasn't you should have, or
Right.
yeah, you need to, or it would be good for you if you.
I know
Yeah.
Craig told me he didn't care what I did with his ashes, just keep them all together. Just keep him all together. So I'm like, okay, so it's those are the little things that, until you've been there, you don't always understand.
Yes. Yeah.
But once you've been over that mountain, then,
Right.
but there will be more mountains to
Yeah.
go over.
Yes, yeah, and when yeah. This for me feels like the biggest one in my life. I've been over mountains before. This one, but like I say, I think for me it feels biggest because it affects my day to day. It affects everything I do. It affects how I sleep.
Yeah.
What I face when I get up in the morning. It's just always there.
It changed who you are,
Oh yes.
but and we
Yes.
were talking about this, not being just defined as a widow now.
Right.
Yes, I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, I'm
Yeah.
a friend, I'm a sister, I'm an
Yes.
aunt,
Yes.
I'm a widow. That's just
Yeah.
one of the dynamics of who
Right.
we are now.
Right, because for months after, I was just a widow.
Yeah.
I was just a widow. That's all I was.
Until you surrendered.
Right.
I think that's the key
Yeah.
word today that we're
Yeah.
looking for, is just to encourage you out there to surrender to God and allow Him to do a work in your life
Yeah.
that only He can do.
Oh, absolutely. And like I say, I can't even begin to tell you because I'm a crybaby. All of the thing, all the times that he just, I was like, there's just no way this is going to work out, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
He just
And
showed
he
up.
just, he just worked it out. And
So-
and I got to where I would say, okay, I know I'm going to be surprised. I just had to quit saying this is not going to work. I had to say, okay, I know I'm going to be surprised. But I'm kind of ready for the surprise. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready for the surprise.
So for somebody out there who's hearing your story and they're saying, okay, so I need to surrender. What does that look like? How can you tell them?
When I would get anxious,
Mhm.
when I would, when I was like, oh, I can't, I can't meet this bill, or I can't take care of that, part of the yard, or, and I would start to get anxious and start to worry, and not worry because I'm not a big worrier, but I would start to, stress. I would go get my Bible and I'd go, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't have to do that. I can trust it, and the more I trusted and the more I was taken care of, the easier it was to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, oh yeah, remember 3 weeks ago when you thought, oh, and 3 weeks before that when you thought, and 4 weeks before that when you thought, oh yeah, all that was handled? Okay. Come on. Come on. He's going to take care of you 52 times, and then the 53rd time he's going to go, never mind.
I'm tired now.
Yeah, no, that's not our God. That's not who he is.
Yeah, I've
He
got some
doesn't.
stories too where
Yes.
you would think that it was a huge problem, and it was.
Yeah. Yes.
But
yes.
God just
Yeah.
has done miraculous things too.
Yes.
We need to just
Yes.
write a book.
And it took a little while, but anything, I started saying anytime my response is, I'm afraid it won't work, I can say, oh, never mind. Because fear doesn't come from God. He doesn't give us a spirit of fear. So anytime I'm afraid it's not going to work, or I'm afraid it's going to be a mess, oh, never mind. I'm really not. Sorry. Didn't mean that.
I love
I say, because I'm a big word person. I'm a huge word person, and I think words matter so much more than we realize.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
So, I read when, I wish I would have read this earlier, but it was in one of the devotional books I read, and it said, referring to your children, it said, a torn jacket is soon mended, but harsh words bruise the heart of a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that. Because, they fall down, they tear their brand. They don't fall down in their old jeans, right?
Right.
They wait till they got their new jeans on. Then they fall and tear a big hole in them.
Yeah.
And you freak out. Or they spill the milk and you freak out. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Those
Right.
things don't matter.
That's right.
And we bruise a lot of hearts. And I bruise my kids sometimes.
Yeah.
Their hearts, not their bodies.
Yeah.
But how much worse? I mean, and after I read that, I chilled out, girl.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I just decided I'm not going to freak out about those things.
Yep.
And I'm not going to bruise my child's heart. And we do that to adults too, don't
Right. Yes, we definitely do that to adults. Yeah.
Sometimes not meaning to or not thinking. And I think that's a lot when you lose someone. A lot of people are trying, their heart's good.
Yes. Yes.
They say a lot of things that are hurtful, not meaning to.
Right. Right. Yes.
So.
Yeah. And that's we also talked earlier about not being offended. You and I did before we started this, and and I have learned to be very hard to be offended. Because I'm like, okay, do I think that person said that deliberately? That's a friend of mine. Did they say that deliberately, trying to upset me? No. Do they know the things that I've been through that would make me be hurt by that a little bit? No.
Yeah.
Now, then it's, if you repeatedly,
Yeah, there's.
and I say to you that, that kind of stings and you just keep on, then I think you're trying to offend me. But I've not been around anybody who did that,
It does happen, but.
Right. But if I realize if that person is deliberately trying to do it, then I don't need them in my life.
No, that's
And
toxic.
if they're not, then it's just, they didn't realize what they said. And I know I've been more than guilty of saying things, that when I walked off, people thought, ouch, without me ever realizing that I had done that.
No,
That I didn't know I had done that because I had not lived the life they'd lived.
that's right.
I didn't have their filter on when I said it.
That's right.
They heard that filter on. They had that filter on when they heard it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Well, I think today, go and tell somebody how much you love them,
Yes,
or
absolutely.
how much you appreciate them, or
Absolutely.
what they mean to you, and as long as it's something good.
Yeah.
But, encourage people. That's the whole point of this podcast, is we want to encourage people. We want to inspire you to surrender if you need to surrender,
Yes.
or to just be obedient to what God's leading in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody says,
And if you
well,
don't know what that is, find you a group.
Yeah.
Find you a group of
Oh, yeah.
people. Find you a group of people who are godly people.
I said that
and
was my
talk to them.
turning point.
Because because sometimes I don't know. It's not that I'm not trying to listen to God. I honestly don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I would do it if I knew what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I honestly don't know, and I need some prayer warriors to to help get me some clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's very clear what I need to do, and I just need to be obedient in it. But sometimes I don't.
How people say, well, how do you know God's speaking to you, or how do you know you're hearing from the Lord? And I think of it this way: if you have a close personal relationship with somebody, you recognize what they're saying to you, right? One time at church, I didn't know my mom and dad were there, and I was sitting up closer to the front, and I heard a cough, just a little cough, and immediately I knew that was my daddy and that they were there. And I think that's the same way with God. When you know Him intimately, by reading His Word, by praying, by having Christian relationships, when you're close to God, you recognize his voice.
Mm-hmm.
You recognize his voice, and I think that.
Yeah, and then sometimes you'll be led in a direction without any details,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be, kind of scary.
Except
But
fear's
you know,
not. We're not going to let that
That's right. That's right. The minute you start,
capture that thought, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I've got a little poem that I say a lot of times, and it's like oh, well, now I can't even.
Widow fog.
Yes, widow fog. Yeah, your mind's a garden. Your thoughts are the seeds. You can plant flowers, or you can plant weeds.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and that's you take every thought captive, the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And make sure that they're, because we can be overloaded with good things too. We can distract ourselves from God with good things too.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not just the negative.
Oh yeah, definitely. So tell me what if you can remember, like me, what Pastor Chris said this morning in prayer. That
Oh, it was. I'm trying to say Pastor Lane. It wasn't Pastor Lane. But I heard this morning that when you're, when
Pastor
you're
Dan.
No. It was at Church of the Highlands, but I mean at Grant's Mill. But I cannot tell you his name right now. But he said, when you're in a room, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. And I love that. I love things like that because it makes me think. Don't just adapt to whatever's around me and oh, it's 40 degrees in here. Okay, let me be 40 degrees. But be the thermostat. Set the tone for the room.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, I love that. I'll be using that a lot.
Well, but it's a good lesson, and it's easy to remember.
Yeah.
So, set your thermostats today, and I'm not talking about the one on the
That's
wall
right.
because
Be the thermostat.
we're in a heat wave.
Yeah.
But personally, is there anything else you want to share today that you?
No, just how much I appreciate you.
Oh,
Yes, I love you so much, and I appreciate you beyond words.
I love
Yes,
you too.
yes.
We're just a work in progress, and so thankful that what God's doing. So thankful that
Yes.
that we have what we have, and
Yes.
that you can have the same.
Yes.
If
Absolutely.
you don't have a widows group in your community or your church or whatever, start one.
Yeah.
You be the thermostat.
Yeah.
You go out there and
Right.
create community.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be surprised. I know I have been.
Yeah, and it doesn't. You don't have to have a bunch of knowledge. You don't have to have a curriculum. You don't have to have. You just have a place to meet.
That's
Yeah.
right.
You just have a place to meet, and then you got to convince the widows that it's not just a bunch of crying, so they'll come.
See, that was why I didn't want to go because
Yeah.
I thought, oh, I'm just going to go and cry. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was the best crying I've ever done.
Right. And
because-
several didn't want to come because they didn't want to hear a bunch of crying. And then they got there and they're like, "Oh, it's so cathartic."
Then
I'll
they
cry
got there
with
and
you.
they cried.
Yeah, I'll cry with you. Yes. Yeah.
But one,
But then you laugh.
there
Then,
is a lot of laughter.
You laugh and you commune and you understand and you're understood and it's amazing.
That's a good feeling, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
And God didn't want us to just isolate ourselves and be alone all
Right.
the time. He wants you to have community.
Absolutely.
And so I just encourage you, wherever you are, wherever you're watching this, to just let God do a miracle in your life and to bless you so much.
Amen.
Just to bless you and know that you're loved. And you can comment, subscribe so you know when we're having our next podcast, which I try to do every week. And I've got some really great people lined up, just like Rebecca. Rebecca, she's had, and I told her today, she's had a big part in this. So this is her ministry too. And I love her. And I love you.
I love you.
God bless you. We'll see you next time.